My name is Clarissa, and at 34 years old, I'm sitting in my new mansion, staring at divorce papers I found hidden in old boxes. Papers that revealed my husband Marcus had secretly divorced me 2 years ago while I was caring for my dying mother. I thought he'd just abandoned me, but the truth was so much worse. Now I'm holding a lottery ticket worth $47 million, and he's begging at my door. Before I tell you how karma works in mysterious ways, let me know where you're watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe to hear how my worst betrayal became my greatest blessing. Marcus and I met at a medical conference in Denver when I was 26. I was a young nurse eager to learn everything, and he was this charismatic pharmaceutical sales rep who could charm anyone in the room. He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person who mattered when he talked to you. His smile reached his eyes back then, and when he asked me to grab coffee after a particularly boring seminar about drug interactions, I said yes without hesitation. Our first date turned into dinner, then drinks, then walking around downtown Denver until 3 in the morning talking about our dreams. Marcus wanted to be more than just a sales rep. He had big plans about starting his own medical supply company, about making it big, about giving us the life we deserved. I loved his ambition. It matched mine in a different way. While I wanted to help people heal, he wanted to build something from nothing. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony at the Botanical Gardens. My mother cried happy tears, telling me she'd never seen me so radiant. Marcus's family was there, too polite but cold, especially his mother, who kept mentioning how her other son, Kevin, had married a doctor, not a nurse. But I didn't care. Marcus held my hand and whispered that I was all he needed. Those first 3 years were what I thought perfect looked like. We bought our first home in the Aurora suburbs, a modest 3-bedroom ranch with a big backyard, where Marcus said our future kids would play. I worked the night shift at Denver General, and he traveled for work, but we made it work. Friday nights were sacred. We'd order Thai food from the place down the street and watch movies on our old couch, my legs draped over his lap, his hand absently rubbing my feet while he talked about his latest sales victories. But something shifted in year 4. Marcus's brother Kevin had just sold his startup for $12 million, and suddenly our comfortable life wasn't enough anymore. Marcus started coming home with business ideas, each one requiring more money than the last. First, it was a supplement company, then medical equipment importing, then some app that would revolutionize prescription delivery. Each venture failed, and each failure made him more desperate. I picked up extra shifts to cover our bills, while Marcus invested our savings into his dreams. 12-hour nights became my normal. I'd come home at 7 in the morning to find Marcus already on his laptop, barely looking up when I kissed his cheek. He'd mumble something about a conference call and wave me toward the bedroom. I'd sleep alone while he spent our money on another sure thing. The call about my mother came on a Tuesday afternoon in September. I was sleeping after a particularly brutal shift when my phone rang. Breast cancer stage 3 aggressive. The doctor's words blurred together as I sat on the edge of our bed, Marcus nowhere to be found. When he finally came home that night, I was surrounded by medical journals researching treatment options. "How much is this going to cost?" was his first question. Not, "How is she?" or "What can I do?" but "How much?" I stared at him, this man I'd married, and saw a stranger calculating numbers in his head. "She's my mother, Marcus. I know that, but we need to be realistic about our finances. My import business is just about to turn the corner." The import business never turned any corner except deeper into debt. But I couldn't think about that. My mother needed me. I took unpaid leave to drive her to chemotherapy appointments, held her hand through radiation, slept in hospital chairs, when the treatment made her too sick to go home. Marcus grew more distant with each passing week. He complained about the medical bills, even though my mother's insurance covered most of it. He complained about me not working, even though I'd supported us through 3 failed businesses. He complained about eating takeout, about the house being messy, about everything except what was actually breaking us apart. The night my mother went into emergency surgery for a bowel obstruction caused by the treatment, I called Marcus 17 times. Each call went to voicemail. I stood in that hospital corridor, fluorescent lights humming above me, and left a final message. "She might die tonight. I need you here." He texted back 2 hours later. "In important meeting. Can't leave." My mother survived that surgery, but something in my marriage died that night. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. Separate bank accounts he'd opened without telling me. Working late on projects he never explained. Phone calls he'd taken the garage voice low and secretive. Amy, my best friend since nursing school, tried to warn me. She'd seen Marcus at restaurants when he was supposedly out of town, but I was drowning in medical terms and treatment plans and insurance paperwork. I didn't have energy to suspect my husband of anything worse than being unsupportive. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. The way he stopped kissing me goodbye. How he moved his clothes to the guest room closet, claiming my schedule disrupted his sleep. The password changes on his laptop. The new gym membership at a place across town when we had a perfectly good gym 2 blocks away. But when your mother is fighting for her life, when you're measuring her medications and checking her temperature, and helping her to the bathroom because she's too weak to walk alone, you don't have space in your brain for marital suspicions. You tell yourself it's stress. You tell yourself things will get better when this crisis passes. You tell yourself lies because the truth would break what's left of your strength. October 15th started with drizzling rain, the kind that makes everything gray and heavy. Marcus was up early, dressed in his best suit, packing a suitcase with more care than I'd seen him take with anything in months. I watched from the doorway of what used to be our bedroom, noting how he folded his shirts with precision, how he selected his favorite ties. "Big opportunity in California," he said without looking at me. "Could be the break we've been waiting for." We. As if there was still a we when he hadn't touched me in 3 months, hadn't asked about my mother in weeks, hadn't been present in any way that mattered. "How long will you be gone?" He zipped the suitcase with finality. "Not sure. Few weeks, maybe. You know how these things go." I didn't know how these things went. He'd never been gone for weeks before. But I was too exhausted from my mother's latest chemo session to argue. She'd been violently ill all night, and I'd held her hair back, rubbed her back, whispered promises that it would get better, even though the oncologist had started using words like palliative and quality of life. Marcus walked past me toward the door, suitcase rolling behind him, cologne trailing in his wake. That cologne I'd bought him for Christmas, the expensive one he'd hinted about for months. He paused at the front door, hand on the knob, and for a moment I thought he might turn around, might kiss me goodbye, might say he loved me. "I'll call you," was all he managed, and then he was gone. The calls never came. Instead, I got text messages, brief and businesslike. "Meeting went well. Staying few more days. Busy. Talk later." Days became weeks. I juggled my mother's appointments with picking up shifts when I could. The bills were piling up, and Marcus's business credit cards were maxed out, statements arriving daily with past due notices. I called him crying after my mother had a bad reaction to a new treatment drug, her body convulsing with allergic response. Straight to voicemail. He texted back 6 hours later. "Sorry, in conference. Hope she's okay." Hope she's okay. My mother nearly died, and all he could manage was hope she's okay. Thanksgiving came with Marcus still gone. His brother Kevin called to invite me to their family dinner, voice awkward and stilted. During dessert, after too much wine, Kevin let something slip. "Weird seeing Marcus at the Lakers game last week. Didn't know he was such a basketball fan." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Lakers game in Los Angeles. Kevin's face went pale. I thought I saw him. Probably wasn't him. Who was he with? It was crowded. Probably mistaken. But Kevin was always a terrible liar. His eyes darted away, and his wife Jennifer suddenly became very interested in clearing plates. I drove home in silence, my mother asleep in the passenger seat, thin and fragile as paper. She'd insisted on coming to dinner, wanting normalcy, wanting to pretend things were fine. But nothing was fine. My husband was at basketball games with someone while I watched my mother disappear pound by pound. Christmas was just my mother and me in her hospital room. She'd been admitted 2 days before with pneumonia, her weakened immune system unable to fight off infection. I strung lights around her IV pole and brought a tiny artificial tree that played tinny carols when you pressed a button. Marcus sent a text at 11:47 p.m. "Merry Christmas, deal taking longer than expected." My mother held my hand with what little strength she had left. "Where's Marcus, sweetheart?" "Working mom, big opportunity." She squeezed weakly. "You deserve better than someone who chooses work over family." "It's complicated." "No, baby. Love isn't complicated. Either someone shows up or they don't. New Year's Eve found me in the same hospital room watching fireworks on the tiny TV while my mother slept fitfully. Marcus's text came at midnight exactly. Happy New Year, still sorting things out. Still sorting things out. Like our marriage was a business deal requiring negotiation. January became February. My mother rallied briefly, came home for 2 weeks, then crashed harder than before. The cancer had spread to her liver, her bones, her brain. She had moments of confusion, where she called me by her sister's name, moments of clarity, where she apologized for being a burden. You're not a burden, Mom. Never. I ruined your marriage. Marcus left because of me. No, Mom. Marcus left because of Marcus. She died on February 14th, Valentine's Day, holding my hand and whispering that she loved me, that she was proud of me, that I was stronger than I knew. Her last coherent words were about Marcus. Don't let him dim your light, baby. You shine too bright for someone who lives in shadows. I arranged her funeral alone, called family alone, picked out her casket alone. Marcus sent flowers, a generic arrangement with a typed card. Sorry for your loss. In negotiations. Can't leave. Sorry for your loss. Like she wasn't the woman who'd welcomed him into our family, who'd taught him her secret recipes, who'd treated him like the son she never had. Just sorry for your loss. At the funeral, people asked about Marcus. I made excuses. Important business. Travel complications. Emergency meetings. Amy held my hand and said nothing. But her eyes said everything. She knew. Everyone knew. I was the only one still pretending. The night after the funeral, I sat in my mother's empty apartment, sorting through her things. Her jewelry box played Claire de Lune, when opened a gift from my father before he died when I was 10. Inside were her wedding rings, a strand of pearls from her mother, and a lottery ticket. Always buy one on Fridays, she told me years ago. 7, 14, 21, 35, 42, and lucky number 13. Family birthdays and the day I met your father. I tucked the ticket into my wallet, a final gift from her, and went home to an empty house that had never felt less like home. 6 months after my mother's death, I was cleaning out the storage unit Marcus and I had rented years ago for his first failed business venture. I'd been avoiding it, but the rental company sent a final notice. Pay or they'd auction everything off. So there I was on a humid Saturday in August, sorting through boxes of broken dreams and business plans that never materialized. In the back corner behind boxes of promotional materials for the supplement company that never launched, I found a banker's box labeled Legal 2022. Marcus must have forgotten about it in his rush to chase whatever new opportunity had called him away. Inside were receipts, tax documents, and a manila folder that would shatter what was left of my world. The divorce decree was dated 18 months ago, filed while I was sitting in a hospital waiting room during my mother's first surgery. The papers claimed abandonment, stating that I had chosen to leave the marital home to care for a family member, effectively deserting my husband and my marriage responsibilities. My hands shook as I read through the lies typed in cold legal language. According to these documents, I had been served papers at our home address. Marcus had testified that I refused to respond, too focused on my mother to care about my marriage. The judge had granted the divorce by default when I never showed up to court. A court date I never knew about. Papers I never received. A divorce I never knew happened. But there was more. Bank statements showing Marcus had been moving money for 2 years, slowly draining our joint accounts into separate ones I never knew existed. Receipts for lawyer consultations dating back to when my mother first got sick. A quit-claim deed for our house with my signature, except I'd never signed it. The handwriting was close, but not quite right the way I formed my letters, just slightly off. I sat on that concrete floor surrounded by the debris of our life together and pieced together the truth. Every business trip had been a meeting with lawyers. Every late night at work had been calculating how to leave me with nothing. He'd planned this meticulously, using my mother's illness as cover, knowing I'd be too distracted to notice. My phone buzzed with a text from Amy. You need to see this. She sent a link to Marcus's social media profiles I'd been blocked from months ago. There he was in San Diego, suntanned and smiling arms around a blonde woman identified as Jennifer Walsh, yoga instructor and wellness coach. Their relationship status showed they'd been together for 2 years. 2 years. While I was holding my mother's hair during chemo, he was holding another woman. I scrolled through their photos with sick fascination. Beach vacations, wine tastings, couples yoga poses. And in every photo, Marcus wore the watch I'd saved for 6 months to buy him for our 5th anniversary. The caption on one photo made me physically ill. So grateful to be free from toxic situations and living my best life with this amazing woman who supports my dreams. Toxic situations. My dying mother was a toxic situation. Amy arrived an hour later to find me still on that storage unit floor, surrounded by evidence of betrayal so complete I couldn't process it. She held me while I sobbed ugly crying that left me gasping for breath. "We're going to destroy him," she said, voice deadly calm. "With what he took everything. The house, the money, even our marriage without telling me. We'll figure it out. First, we need a lawyer." The lawyer confirmed what I feared. The divorce was legal if suspicious. Marcus had covered his tracks well, making sure to file in a different county where the judge wouldn't ask too many questions. Fighting it would cost thousands I didn't have, and even then, success wasn't guaranteed. "But the forged signature on the house deed, that's criminal," the lawyer said. "Problem is proving it. These cases take years and massive amounts of evidence." Years and money I didn't have. Marcus had timed everything perfectly, knowing I'd be too broken to fight back. I moved into a studio apartment above a pizza place, the smell of garlic permanently embedded in the walls. It was all I could afford while paying off my mother's remaining medical bills and the credit cards Marcus had maxed out in my name before leaving. 300 square feet of humiliation, with a Murphy bed that creaked and a shower that only had hot water half the time. But I wasn't giving up. I was my mother's daughter, and she'd raised me to be stronger than circumstances. I picked up every shift the hospital would give me, working nights at Denver General Days at an urgent care clinic, and weekends doing private home care for elderly patients. 18-hour days became normal. Sleep became a luxury. My meals consisted of ramen noodles dressed up with whatever vegetables were on clearance. I learned 17 different ways to prepare instant noodles, becoming creative with soy sauce and hot sauce packets I'd collect from the hospital cafeteria. Amy would bring groceries sometimes, pretending she'd bought too much, and I'd pretend I wasn't grateful to have real food. The exhaustion was bone deep, the kind that makes you forget what it feels like to not be tired. I'd fall asleep standing up on the train, jerk awake at my stop, and stumble to whatever job was next. But every dollar saved was a dollar toward potentially fighting Marcus's fraud, toward maybe getting some justice. My one indulgence was a lottery ticket every Friday. $2 spent at the corner store while buying my single cup of coffee for the week. I used my mother's numbers: 7 for the day she was born, 14 for their wedding anniversary, 21 for the day I was born, 35 for my father's age when he died, 42 for her age when diagnosed, and 13 for the day they met. She always said 13 was lucky despite what people believed. It became a ritual. Every Friday at exactly 3 p.m. before my night shift, I'd buy that ticket from Sam at the corner store. He'd shake his head and laugh. "One day, Miss Clarissa, one day those numbers gonna hit. From your mouth to God's ears, Sam." February 28th was unseasonably warm for Denver, the kind of false spring that tricks you before winter comes roaring back. I'd worked 3 straight shifts covering for a colleague with the flu and could barely see straight. The lottery drawing was that night, but I almost didn't check my ticket. What was the point? I'd been playing these numbers for 6 months with nothing to show for it. But habit is powerful. I sat on my Murphy bed with leftover Chinese food from a patient's family who'd insisted on feeding me laptop balanced on my knees, watching the drawing on the lottery website, because I didn't have cable. First number, 7. I'd gotten that before, no big deal. Second number, 14. Okay, 2 numbers. That had happened maybe twice. Third number, 21. My hand holding the lo mein container started to tremble. Fourth number, 35. The food dropped onto my lap, soy sauce staining my scrubs. Fifth number, 42. I couldn't breathe, literally couldn't pull air into my lungs. Final number 13. I stared at the screen, then at my ticket, then back at the screen. Refreshed the page. The numbers didn't change. Checked 3 different lottery websites. Same numbers. Called the lottery hotline with shaking fingers, listened to the automated recording repeat the numbers. $47 million. The jackpot was $47 million. I threw up. Right there on my Murphy bed, just turned my head and emptied my stomach. Then I called the lottery office, was told to come in Monday morning to sign the back of the ticket, to tell no one, to get a lawyer and financial advisor immediately. Tell no one. But I had to tell someone. My mother. I needed to tell my mother. I sat there clutching that ticket, talking to her picture on my nightstand. You did this, didn't you, 42 for when you got sick? 13 for Dad. You gave me these numbers. You gave me this gift. The weekend was agony. I worked my shifts like nothing had changed. Smiled at patients, charted medications, acted normal while carrying a $47 million secret in my wallet. Amy noticed something was different. You look weird. Are you okay? Just tired. No, it's something else. You look lighter, somehow. Lighter. I was about to be $28 million richer after taxes if I took the lump sum, and my best friend thought I looked lighter. Monday morning, I called in sick for the first time in 2 years and went to the lottery office. They verified the ticket 3 times, had me fill out paperwork, took my photo with a giant check, and explained my options: lump sum or annuity, financial counseling services, media obligations. Do I have to go public immediately? You have 3 weeks before we announce. Time to get your affairs in order. Affairs in order. Like getting a lawyer to ensure Marcus couldn't touch a penny of this money. The divorce he'd secretly gotten would be his biggest mistake. He'd severed all legal claim to anything I earned after that date. His own greed had protected me. I took the lump sum, $28 million after taxes, deposited into a new bank account at a different bank where Marcus had never had access. The number on the balance screen looked fake, like Monopoly money, too many digits to be real. The first thing I did was pay off my mother's medical bills. Every penny. Then the credit cards Marcus had destroyed. Then I wrote a check to Amy for all the groceries she'd bought me, all the time she'd covered my rent when I couldn't make it. She tried to refuse. This isn't why I helped you. I know, that's exactly why you're taking it. I kept working for 2 more weeks, saving lives and cleaning bedpans while sitting on millions, because I needed to feel normal a little longer. I needed to remember who I was before everything changed again. But change was coming whether I was ready or not. The Lottery Commission announced my win on March 21st, first day of spring, and my phone exploded with congratulations from numbers I didn't recognize. And then, like clockwork, 3 hours after the announcement, a text from a number I'd deleted but still recognized. Clarissa, we need to talk. Marcus had crawled out from under his rock right on schedule. The text messages started immediately and didn't stop. My phone buzzed constantly with Marcus's attempts to rewrite history. Clarissa, I just heard your amazing news. So happy for you. We should talk about us. I made mistakes. Please call me. I never stopped loving you. 10 texts became 50. 50 became 100. When I didn't respond, the calls started. Voicemails filled with calculated emotion, his voice cracking at just the right moments. Clarissa, it's me. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But please, we need to talk. I never meant for things to happen this way. Never meant for things to happen this way. Like abandonment and secret divorce were accidents that just happened. I was walking to my car after my shift at Denver General, 3 days after the announcement, when I saw him. Marcus stood by my beat-up Honda Civic holding a bouquet of stargazer lilies, my mother's favorite flowers. He'd lost weight, his expensive suit hanging loose on his frame, and his face had the gaunt look of someone who'd been living on stress and regret. Hello, Clarissa. I stopped 10 feet away, hand moving to my phone in case I needed to call security. How did you know I still worked here? I know you. Knew you wouldn't quit immediately. You're too responsible for that. Like you were responsible when you divorced me in secret. His face crumpled into practiced remorse. That's not what happened. It's complicated. Actually, it's pretty simple. You filed for divorce while I was at my mother's surgery. You claimed I abandoned you. You forged my signature on our house deed. You moved money for 2 years planning your escape. Nothing complicated about betrayal, Marcus. Jennifer meant nothing. She was a mistake, a distraction when I was weak. Jennifer, the woman you've been with for 2 years, according to social media. That mistake. He stepped forward and I stepped back. Security guards at the hospital entrance noticed our interaction started moving toward us. Everything okay, Clarissa? James, the night guard, who'd walked me to my car countless times, called out. Yes, James, this gentleman was just leaving. Marcus's jaw clenched. We were married for 8 years, Clarissa. Doesn't that mean anything? Were. Past tense. You made sure of that with your secret divorce, remember? Those papers. They weren't real. I never filed them. I just had them drawn up in a moment of anger. We're still married. The lie was so bold, so desperate, I actually laughed. I have a copy of the decree, Marcus, filed 18 months ago. Judge signature and everything. You're not very good at this. His mask slipped for just a moment, rage flashing in his eyes before being replaced by tears. Actual tears. He'd always been able to cry on command, a skill that had served him well in sales. I've lost everything, Clarissa. Jennifer left me. The business failed. Kevin won't talk to me. I'm sleeping in my car. And this is my problem because you're not cruel. You're the kindest person I know. You wouldn't let someone suffer when you have the means to help. There it was, the manipulation wrapped in compliments. Classic Marcus. You're right. I'm not cruel, which is why I'm not going to have you arrested for stalking me. This time. Don't come here again. I walked past him toward the hospital entrance where James was waiting. Marcus called after me. You owe me, Clarissa. Half of that money should be mine. We built a life together. I turned back, really looked at him for the first time. This man I'd loved, married, planned children with. He looked like a stranger wearing Marcus's face. You destroyed that life. Every penny of this lottery winning is dated after your secret divorce. You have no legal claim to anything. I'll fight you. I'll tell everyone what really happened. What really happened, that you abandoned your wife while her mother was dying, that you committed fraud. Please, Marcus, tell everyone. Over the next 2 weeks, his tactics escalated. He showed up at my apartment building, camping out in the lobby, until the landlord threatened to call the police. He appeared at the grocery store, the pharmacy, the coffee shop I'd started frequenting now that I could afford more than instant coffee. Each time he had a new story. We were still in love and just needed counseling. The divorce was a misunderstanding he was trying to fix. We were separated, but working things out. He told anyone who would listen that I was being influenced by toxic friends, that I wasn't myself since my mother's death, that I needed help managing my sudden wealth. The social media campaign was worse. He posted old photos of us with captions about true love surviving any storm and money doesn't matter when you have each other. Our wedding photos appeared with long paragraphs about forgiveness and second chances. He created a narrative where he was the devoted husband waiting for his grieving wife to come home. His family joined the effort. His mother, who'd never thought I was good enough for her son, suddenly called daily. Clarissa, dear Marcus is devastated. You know how men are. They don't know how to express emotions properly. He made mistakes, but he loves you. His brother Kevin, who'd accidentally revealed Marcus's deception, texted apologies. I shouldn't have said anything about the Lakers game. Jennifer means nothing to him. You're his true love. Even Jennifer reached out a long email about how Marcus talked about me constantly, how she knew she was just a rebound, how she'd ended things, because she couldn't compete with his love for me. The synchronized lying was almost impressive. They'd coordinated their stories, each hitting different emotional pressure points. But I'd spent 6 months sleeping in a studio apartment that smelled like pepperoni, eating ramen while working 3 jobs. I'd watched my mother die, while my husband played house with a yoga instructor. My tolerance for manipulation had died with her. The confrontation came at a Starbucks on a Thursday morning. I was meeting with a financial advisor, planning charitable donations and trust funds, when Marcus appeared. He slid into the booth beside me, trapping me against the wall, his cologne the same one I'd bought him years ago. We need to talk. Alone. My advisor, a sharp woman named Patricia, who'd seen everything in her 30-year career, didn't flinch. Sir, you need to leave. This is between me and my wife. Ex-wife, I corrected. And Patricia stays. Marcus grabbed my arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. You're making a mistake, Clarissa. I know things about your mother, about the treatment choices you made, about the night you weren't there when she coded because you were sleeping. The threat was clear. He'd weaponized my mother's death, turned my grief into something shameful. Patricia was already recording on her phone. That sounds like blackmail, Mr. Thompson. His grip loosened. It's not blackmail. I'm just reminding Clarissa that marriage involves shared history, shared secrets. I pulled my arm free, stood up, despite being trapped. The only secret here is how you divorced me while I was at my mother's bedside. And that's not going to be secret much longer. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. I squeezed past him, Patricia right behind me. As we reached the door, Marcus played his last card. I'm hiring a lawyer. Common law marriage still applies in Colorado. The divorce was fraudulent. You were never properly served. We're still married in the eyes of the law. I turned back one final time. Good luck with that, Marcus. I have excellent lawyers now. $28 million buys the best legal team in Denver. Bring it on. His face went white. He'd expected me to crumble to pay him off to go away quietly. He'd never expected me to fight. But I was done being the woman who worked 3 jobs to support his dreams. Done being the wife who made excuses for his absence. Done being the person who dimmed their light so he could shine. The restraining order was filed the next day along with a criminal complaint for the forged signature on the house deed. My legal team didn't just want to defend against his claims. They wanted to destroy him. And honestly, so did I. My lawyer, Catherine, was everything Marcus feared in a woman. Ivy League educated, ruthlessly intelligent, and completely immune to his charm. She'd built her career destroying men who thought they could manipulate the system. And Marcus had become her personal project. The fraudulent divorce is actually fascinating from a legal perspective, she said during our strategy meeting. He was so clever he got stupid. By divorcing you secretly and claiming abandonment, he established that you were separated during your mother's illness, which means any claims to your lottery winnings based on marital assets are void. The private investigator Catherine hired uncovered the full scope of Marcus's situation. $300,000 in debt from failed businesses and personal loans. Jennifer had left him for Kevin when the money ran out, a detail that would have been soap opera worthy if it wasn't so pathetic. Marcus had been evicted from his San Diego apartment, his car repossessed, his credit cards canceled. He'd been sleeping on acquaintances' couches, burning through friendships with sob stories and borrowed money he'd never repay. He targeted you from the beginning, Catherine explained, showing me documents the investigator had found. He has a pattern. Find successful women, marry them, drain their resources for his schemes, then leave when things get difficult. You were his third wife, Clarissa. The other 2 were also nurses. Third wife. I'd been a mark, not a love story. The restraining order was granted immediately based on the Starbucks incident and documented harassment. Marcus was served at the motel where he'd been staying, a rundown place off Highway 6 that rented by the week. He violated it within 48 hours, showing up at Denver General during my last shift. Security detained him while I watched from the nurse's station. He screamed my name, claimed I was stealing what was rightfully his, that I'd ruined his life. The police arrested him, and the video went viral within hours. Someone had titled it, "Gold Digger Gets Karma When Secret Divorce Backfires," and it had 2 million views by morning. His public meltdown became his undoing. The district attorney's office, already investigating the forged deed, added charges for violating the restraining order and fraud. Banks he owed money to started calling in loans. Former business partners came forward with their own stories of deception. While Marcus's life imploded, I was building something new. The house purchase was both practical and symbolic. Our old home, the one he'd stolen with a forged signature, went on the market after the bank foreclosed on him. I bought it for cash, then spent 3 months gutting and renovating everything. The kitchen, where we'd fought about money, became a bright space with windows overlooking a garden. The guest room where he'd moved his clothes became my mother's memorial library, filled with medical texts and novels she'd loved. The master bedroom where I'd slept alone became a sanctuary, with colors he'd always hated, soft pinks and warm golds that made the space feel like sunrise. I hired a contractor named Miguel, whose mother had died of cancer the previous year. He understood why I needed to erase Marcus from these walls while honoring my mother's memory. We planted roses beneath the windows, the same variety my mother had grown in her apartment building's community garden. The scholarship foundation was announced on what would have been my mother's 63rd birthday. Full nursing school tuition for students who were caregivers for family members with cancer. 30 students in the first year with plans to expand. Each recipient would also receive mentorship and job placement assistance. The Foundation for Cancer Patients' Families started smaller, but more immediately impactful. Grocery deliveries for families spending days in hospitals, gas cards for treatment travel, respite care so exhausted caregivers could sleep. Everything I'd needed and couldn't afford while watching my mother fade. The press conference announcing both initiatives brought unexpected attention. Reporters wanted the full story. Why these specific causes? What inspired such generosity? I told them the truth, or at least part of it. My mother's battle with cancer, the financial strain of caregiving, the lottery win that felt like a gift from her. I didn't mention Marcus initially, but reporters are thorough. They found the divorce records, the arrest video, the social media trail of his deception. The story became bigger than charity. It became about survival, resilience, and poetic justice. Marcus's mother called during the press conference, watching on live stream from her retirement community. How could you do this to him? Air family business in public. He aired our marriage on social media first. I'm just correcting the narrative. He's had to declare bankruptcy because of you. He declared bankruptcy because he's a con artist who got caught. You've destroyed my family. Kevin and Jennifer are getting divorced because of the stress. Your family was destroyed long before I won the lottery. I just stopped funding the dysfunction. She hung up, but not before I heard her crying. Part of me felt sorry for her. She'd raised 2 sons who viewed women as resources to exploit. That failure had to hurt, but my empathy had limits, and she'd crossed them when she'd called me crying about bail money for Marcus after his second restraining order violation. The viral video had unexpected consequences. Women started reaching out with their own stories. Nurses who dated Marcus before me describing the same patterns of charm, financial drain, and abandonment. Other women with similar experiences, secretly divorced or financially destroyed by partners who'd seen them as meal tickets rather than equals. We formed a support group that met monthly. 12 women who'd been gaslit, manipulated, and discarded, finding strength in shared experience. We called ourselves the Phoenix Circle, rising from the ashes of relationships that had tried to burn us alive. Through all of this, I was learning to live with wealth I'd never imagined. Simple pleasures became possible. Buying coffee without checking my bank balance. Shopping for groceries based on what I wanted rather than what was on sale. Sleeping in sheets with thread counts I couldn't have previously justified. But the biggest luxury was peace. No more triple shifts to pay bills. No more choosing between gas and groceries. No more lying awake calculating which bill to skip this month. The exhaustion I'd carried for so long began to lift, revealing a person I'd forgotten existed. I started dating again 8 months after the lottery win. Thomas was nothing like Marcus. A pediatric surgeon who volunteered at free clinics, he was quiet where Marcus had been loud, steady where Marcus had been chaotic. We met at a hospital fundraiser where he spent more time talking about his young patients than his impressive resume. Our first date was coffee that turned into a walk that turned into dinner. He didn't know about the lottery until our 4th date, when a photographer recognized me at a restaurant. His response was perfect. That must have complicated your life enormously. How are you handling it? Not how much did you win or what are you buying, but how are you handling it? He saw me, not the money. We took things slowly. I'd been love-bombed by Marcus, swept into marriage before I could see the red flags. With Thomas, every step was deliberate. He met Amy first, understanding that her approval mattered. He brought flowers to my mother's grave, asking her permission to court her daughter. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give. When he learned the full story of Marcus's betrayal, his anger was quiet but intense. He stole more than money. He stole time you could have spent with your mother without that stress. That's unforgivable. Thomas understood boundaries. He had his own money, his own life, his own dreams that didn't require my funding. When we went out, he insisted on alternating who paid maintaining equality despite the disparity in our bank accounts. The final encounter with Marcus came at a grocery store 15 months after the lottery win. I was buying ingredients for dinner with Thomas, debating between two wines, when I saw him at the end of the aisle. He was thinner, older looking, wearing clothes that had seen better days. We made eye contact across the distance. His mouth opened as if to speak, then closed. He looked at my basket filled with expensive ingredients, at my designer purse I'd finally allowed myself to buy, at the confidence I wore like armor. "I'm sorry," he whispered just loud enough for me to hear. I could have responded, could have twisted the knife with details of my new life, could have mentioned Thomas or the foundations or the house he'd tried to steal that was now mine. Instead, I simply walked past him toward the checkout, leaving him standing alone among the soup cans and broken dreams. That night, Thomas and I cooked together in my renovated kitchen, music, playing wine, flowing laughter, filling spaces that had once held arguments and tears. He didn't know about the encounter, and I didn't tell him. Marcus had become irrelevant, a footnote in a story that had moved far beyond him. 2 years have passed since that lottery drawing changed everything. I'm sitting in my office at the foundation looking at photos from our latest scholarship recipient graduation. 23 new nurses entering the workforce, each one having cared for a family member through serious illness. My mother would have been so proud. The foundation has helped 20,000 families navigate the financial burden of cancer treatment. We've distributed $12 million in assistance, from grocery cards to mortgage payments. Every dollar a reminder that no one should have to choose between caring for a loved one and keeping a roof over their head. The house I rebuilt has become a gathering place for the Phoenix Circle for scholarship recipients. For anyone who needs to be reminded that surviving isn't just possible, it's powerful. The roses beneath the windows bloom 3 seasons a year, and I swear sometimes I can smell them, even when the windows are closed like my mother is visiting. Thomas and I have been together for a year now. He moved some things in 6 months ago, but we maintain separate spaces, understanding that independence is precious when you've had it stolen before. He proposed last month not with fanfare, but quietly, privately in my mother's garden. I said I'd think about it, and he said he'd wait as long as I needed. The ring sits in my jewelry box next to my mother's pearls, beautiful, but not yet worn. I'm not ready. Maybe I'll never be ready for marriage again. And Thomas says that's okay too. We can be partners without papers, committed, without contracts. I still wear my mother's wedding ring on a chain around my neck. It reminds me that real love shows up during chemotherapy and sleepless nights. Real love doesn't calculate cost versus benefit. Real love doesn't abandon you when life gets hard. The therapy has helped more than I expected. Dr. Martinez, recommended by Catherine, specializes in betrayal trauma. She helped me understand that Marcus was always capable of such cruelty. The charming man I fell in love with was a performance, a character designed to get what he wanted. The real Marcus was the one who asked about cost while my mother was dying. People tell you who they are, Dr. Martinez says. We just have to learn to listen the first time. I've learned to listen, to trust my instincts, to value actions over words, to recognize that someone who loves you doesn't make you choose between them and your dying mother. These seem like obvious lessons now, but trauma has a way of clouding obvious truths. Marcus works at a cell phone store now, according to the private investigator's last update. He lives in a studio apartment similar to the one I once inhabited above the pizza place. His social media has gone dark, the carefully curated life story abandoned. Jennifer married Kevin, though they're reportedly separated. The Thompson family mythology of success has crumbled, leaving behind ordinary people with ordinary failures. His mother sends a Christmas card every year. No message, just her signature. I don't know if it's an apology or an accusation, maybe both. I donate to a charity in her name each time, usually something supporting elderly women. We all make choices about who to protect and who to abandon. The lottery tickets remain a Friday ritual. Same numbers, same corner store, same. Sam shaking his head at my persistence. I've won $12 total in 2 years, which Sam finds hilarious. You already won everything, Miss Clarissa. Lightning doesn't strike twice. But I'm not playing to win. I'm playing to remember. 7 for my mother's birth, 14 for her wedding, 21 for my arrival. 35 for my father's death, 42 for her diagnosis, 13 for the luck she insisted lived in that unlucky number. Every Friday at 3 p.m., I perform this ritual of remembrance. Then I go home to a life she made possible through numbers chosen with love, protected by a secret divorce meant to destroy me, and transformed by loss into something beautiful. Last week, I visited her grave with news. The foundation is expanding nationally. We're partnering with major cancer centers to provide immediate financial assistance to families. No applications, no waiting periods. So, the moment someone gets a diagnosis, help arrives. I told her about Thomas, about the ring waiting for an answer, about my fear of trusting again. I told her about the 37 women who've joined Phoenix Circle, each one rebuilding after betrayal. I told her about Marcus's pathetic grocery store apology, and how I'd felt nothing, not even satisfaction, just emptiness, where anger used to live. "You were right, Mom," I whispered to her headstone. "He was living in shadows while I was meant for light." A wind picked up scattering rose petals from the arrangement I'd brought. They swirled around me like confetti, like celebration, like blessing. Sometimes I think she's still here, still protecting me, still choosing numbers that will somehow save me. Because here's what I've learned. The lottery win wasn't random. It was precisely timed, arriving after Marcus's secret divorce protected it from his grasp. If I'd won while married, he'd have taken half and disappeared with Jennifer anyway. If I'd won before my mother got sick, I'd never have learned to survive on nothing, to find strength in struggle. The universe, or my mother, or maybe both, protected me by letting Marcus leave before my ship came in. His betrayal wasn't my ending. It was my beginning. I sleep peacefully now in my rebuilt house in sheets that smell like lavender, with or without Thomas beside me, knowing that no one can secretly divorce me again. The papers would have to go through Catherine first, and she'd destroy anyone who tried. But more importantly, I'd survive it. I'd survive anything. My mother made sure of that, teaching me through her death that loss can become gift, that grief can become growth, that $47 million means nothing compared to knowing you're strong enough to eat ramen for 6 months and still buy lottery tickets with your last $2. The money gave me freedom, but my mother gave me strength. Marcus took my marriage, but he couldn't touch my spirit. And now, when young nurses come through the foundation exhausted from caring for dying parents, broke from medical bills, marriages strained to breakings, I tell them my story. Not the fairy tale Marcus tried to sell on social media. Not the victim narrative the press originally wanted, but the truth. That sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing. That betrayal can be protection in disguise. That your lowest moment might be the universe positioning you for your highest triumph. And always, always check your legal documents, because the person sleeping beside you might be planning their escape while you're planning your future. My name is Clarissa, and I won the lottery twice. Once when my lying ex-husband divorced me in secret, protecting me from having to share my fortune with him. And once when those 7 numbers came up, my mother's final gift arriving exactly when I needed it most. What would you do if you discovered your spouse had been planning to leave you all along? How would you rebuild after losing everything? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've experienced betrayal that became a blessing, please share your story. Thank you for listening to my journey from abandonment to abundance. Please like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories of triumph over betrayal, and share this with anyone who needs to be reminded that sometimes the worst endings lead to the best beginnings. Remember, you are stronger than you know worth, more than someone else's lies, and capable of rebuilding no matter how completely you've been broken. Until next time, check your documents, trust your instincts, and never apologize for choosing family over someone who would make you choose.